In the vast stretches of the galaxy, where countless civilizations have risen and fallen, humanity had always remained in the background, a mere speck in the vast cosmos. Earth, home to billions, was considered primitive by the standards of the great galactic powers. Yet what no one knew was that humanity had a secret, one that would shake the galaxy to its core. For centuries, Earth's brightest minds had been working in the shadows, carefully crafting a hidden empire far beyond the reach of the more advanced civilizations that ruled the stars. With every discovery, every artifact scavenged from ancient ruins and long-forgotten worlds, humanity quietly advanced, gathering knowledge and technology at a pace the galaxy couldn't even imagine. These advancements, once thought to be beyond human grasp, were built into the foundations of a fleet of ships that no one knew existed. Ships unlike any other in the galaxy, faster, stronger, and more efficient. This fleet was humanity's silent weapon, a force of sheer ingenuity that lurked in the darkest corners of space, watching, waiting. Earth's society had transformed. It was no longer just a home to humans. It had become the center of knowledge, commerce, and military power, all driven by an unseen hand. A unified council composed of Earth's best minds governed the planet, and within this council were two figures whose names would soon be known across the galaxy: General Caitlin Garrow and Commander Dorian Voss. Both had risen through the ranks, their brilliance unmatched, and each played a key role in shaping the empire that was being built under everyone's noses. General Garrow, a tactician of rare skill, was known for her ability to lead fleets into battle with a precision that bordered on supernatural. Commander Voss, on the other hand, was a strategist, his mind a labyrinth of calculations and probabilities, always thinking 5 steps ahead of everyone else. Under their leadership, humanity's technological development had far surpassed what most empires would consider possible for such a young species. But all of this was hidden. Nothing was revealed. To the outside world, Earth's empire had remained cloaked, its fleet a whisper on the wind, its power only known to a select few. The galaxy, for the most part, remained unaware of humanity's rise. To the galactic empires, humanity was a backwater species, unremarkable and insignificant, a far cry from the civilizations that commanded the stars. They saw humans as nothing more than a nuisance, a species with no power to threaten the great galactic order. The Zoric Dominion, a ruthless empire with a long history of conquest, thought little of humanity's potential. They had conquered countless worlds, and Earth was just another small, unimportant planet lost among many others. The same could be said for the High Archon Federation, the Draxian Syndicate, and the countless other powers that called the galaxy home. Humanity's quiet growth went unnoticed, its fleet slipping through the cracks, unnoticed by those who believed themselves to be the true rulers of the stars. But all of this was about to change. Humanity's empire, built with patience, secrecy, and an unwavering resolve, was ready to reveal itself. It wasn't just a fleet that had been constructed. It was a statement, a message to the galaxy that humanity was no longer the weak, fragile species it once had been. The time to remain in the shadows was over. The empire, powerful and unstoppable, had been carefully constructed for one purpose: to protect humanity's future. It was an empire that would strike when the galaxy least expected it, a force so deeply embedded in the fabric of space that no one could predict where it would emerge from next. But the greatest advantage humanity had was the very secrecy of its existence. No one knew what they were capable of, and that would be their greatest strength. In the shadows, humanity had built something far greater than any empire could have imagined. It was not just technology that made humanity strong. It was their relentless will to survive, their ingenuity, and their ability to adapt. Every ship in their fleet, every advancement, every weapon had been crafted with a single thought in mind: survival. They had been preparing for this moment for centuries, and now, The galaxy would see just how dangerous a species could be when it was underestimated. As the dark corners of space began to stir, and whispers of strange, untraceable ships reached the ears of the galaxy's ruling powers, no one could have predicted the storm that was about to hit. Humanity's empire, forged in secrecy and shadow, was on the verge of stepping into the light. And the galaxy, for all its power and wisdom, would have to reckon with the force that had been quietly building for so long. Earth's shadow empire was no longer a secret, and the galaxy was about to learn just how dangerous humanity could be when forced into the open. The first hints of the coming war didn't arrive with the deafening roar of battle or the flash of explosions. Instead, it came quietly, like a whisper in the dark, something that most ignored at first. The galaxy had always been a place of vast distances and infinite mysteries, but for all the known threats, the Zoric Dominion had never encountered anything quite like what was happening in the outer sectors. The Zoric, a ruthless empire known for their brutal conquests, had long considered humans to be beneath notice, insignificant, primitive. Led by the sharp and calculating Empress Vorith, the Dominion had swept through system after system with little opposition. They ruled with iron fists, their massive fleets conquering world after world, their enemies either fleeing or quickly crushed. But now, something was different. Reports began to trickle in from the Zoric scouts. Strange disturbances, anomalies in space that couldn't be explained. These weren't just random signs of natural occurrences. No, they were something else. At first, it was dismissed as nothing more than glitches in the data, an illusion created by the vast distances of space. But the reports kept coming. Unidentified ships, moving with purpose, slipping through the darkness of uncharted space. Fleets that should not exist, ships too advanced, too fast, too precise. The Zoric could not understand what they were seeing. These were not the typical marauding forces or raiding parties they were used to encountering. These were fleets, organized and coordinated, acting with the sort of precision that suggested a power they hadn't anticipated. Empress Vorith, ever the strategist, knew that when something like this appeared, it wasn't just a coincidence, it was a threat. Her first instinct was to dismiss it, to focus on more immediate concerns, but something nagged at her. The reports from the scouts didn't make sense, and the more she thought about it, the more she realized that this was no minor disruption. This could be something far more dangerous, an emerging force, something that could disrupt everything the Zoric had worked to build. After years of conquering with little resistance, the Zoric were not used to being challenged. They had expanded, too far, too quickly. The idea that another empire, especially one as weak and young as humanity, could rise up and pose a challenge to their dominance seemed ridiculous at first. But something deep in Vorith's mind told her to be cautious. And so, with a cold determination, she gave the order. Find them. Hunt them down. Bring them into the light. The Zoric fleets were massive and powerful, yet they were searching for something they didn't understand. They began sweeping across the outer edges of the galaxy, their warships hunting for any trace of this unknown enemy. The hunt stretched far, deeper than they had ever ventured before, as they scoured the shadows for signs of this mysterious force. Meanwhile, humanity's hidden empire, which had been quietly preparing for years, was now fully operational. As the Zoric moved closer to the hidden corners of the galaxy, humanity's sensors, equipped with technology no one outside their empire had ever encountered, began to detect the incoming fleets. General Caitlin Garrow, leader of the newly formed Galactic Vanguard, stood at the helm of Earth's first line of defense. She had been waiting for this moment, preparing for the inevitable discovery of their empire. The Zoric, powerful as they were about to come face to face with a species they had long overlooked. But humanity would not be caught unprepared. Garrow knew that the element of surprise was their greatest weapon, and she wasted no time. In issuing orders for the first strike, the humans moved swiftly and silently, A carefully planned series of covert attacks, small, tactical, and precise, began to unfold across the outer rim, where the Zorik were beginning to make their presence known. Each strike was calculated to confuse and disorient the Zorik, to make them question everything they thought they knew. The first wave of humanity's response was not a grand battle, but a series of small, well-executed skirmishes, each one leaving behind nothing but confusion and the unmistakable signature of highly advanced technology. No Zorik ships were destroyed yet, but their confidence began to crack. General Garrow's forces were composed of experts, military strategists, engineers, and soldiers, working in perfect harmony, their tactics a silent symphony of destruction. They were not engaging in open war, not yet. Instead, they were playing a game of cat and mouse, drawing the Zorik deeper into their trap, making them chase ghosts in the dark. Every encounter, every move made by the humans was designed to leave the Zorik off balance, unsure of who or what they were fighting. As the Zorik fleets moved deeper into the outer reaches of the galaxy, they realized too late that they had underestimated their enemy. They were not hunting a weak, unprepared species. They were hunting something far more dangerous, an empire, hidden in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Humanity was no longer just a quiet whisper. It was a force, building in strength, biding its time. And now, the first hints of war had begun to take shape. The Zorik may have thought they could easily find and crush this mysterious enemy, but the battle for the galaxy was only just beginning. And in the shadows, humanity's empire was preparing to reveal its true power. The Zorik Dominion, known for their overwhelming military power, had long considered themselves unstoppable. Their vast fleets, reinforced with the most advanced weaponry and the strength of 1,000 worlds under their control, were a symbol of their unmatched dominance. However, their first true test came when they ventured deep into the outer edges of the galaxy, where humanity's hidden empire lay in wait. The Zorik, confident in their numbers, expected an easy victory. They had been hunting the Shadow Empire for weeks, chasing phantom ships and engaging in small skirmishes that seemed to serve no purpose. But now, they were about to face something they had never anticipated. At a remote asteroid field, the stage was set for the first true clash between the two forces. The Zorik fleet moved confidently, unaware that they were walking into a carefully laid trap. General Caitlin Garrow, commanding the human flagship Retribution, had been biding her time, studying the Zorik's movements and weaknesses. As the Zorik ships entered the asteroid field, Garrow struck. She had orchestrated a masterful ambush, drawing the Zorik into a narrow, rocky passage where their superior numbers were useless. Humanity's ships, faster and more agile, danced through the field with ease, while the lumbering Zorik vessels found themselves trapped, unable to maneuver effectively. The humans struck with surgical precision. Small, well-coordinated strikes disoriented the Zorik, cutting through their defenses before they could react. The Zorik, accustomed to overwhelming force and straightforward tactics, were thrown off balance. Their superior firepower was useless in the cramped hostile environment, where every shot was either blocked or avoided. It was a battle of speed and cunning, and humanity's ships, equipped with technology the Zorik had never seen before, held the upper hand. The Retribution, under Garrow's leadership, became the spearhead of the attack, slicing through Zorik ships with ease. Within hours, the once proud Zorik fleet was in disarray, their ships broken and scattered. The victory was complete, and the galaxy would never be the same again. News of the defeat spread quickly. Empress Vorith, humiliated by the loss, could not accept that the humans, a species she had considered insignificant, had bested her fleet. For her, it was an affront to the Zorik's pride and power. She ordered an immediate response, sending an even larger fleet to crush humanity once and for all. But the Zorik were not prepared for what was to come. Far from hiding, humanity had been planning for this moment. Commander Dorian Voss, the brilliant strategist behind many of humanity's successes, was ready. He knew the Zorik would come. For them. And he had prepared a devastating counterattack. As the full force of the Zorik fleet descended on a strategically important world, one of the Zorik's own fortress worlds, humanity unleashed its full might. The attack was swift and brutal, an assault unlike anything the Zorik had ever seen. Humanity's ships, using cutting-edge tactics and weaponry, hit the Zorik defenses with devastating force. The Zorik fortress world, once thought impregnable, was overwhelmed in a matter of days. Their ground forces were thrown into disarray, their command structure shattered. The Zorik, unaccustomed to such calculated, precise attacks, found themselves reeling. Every move they made seemed to play into humanity's hands. Every defense they set up turned against them. The battle, though fierce, was a turning point in the war. The Zorik, once confident in their superiority, now had to face the reality that humanity was not a force to be taken lightly. The victory sent shockwaves through the galaxy. News of the human triumph spread like wildfire, reaching even the farthest corners of space. Suddenly, the Zorik's dominance was called into question. Other empires, previously content to watch from the sidelines, began to take notice of humanity's rise. For the first time, they saw the humans not as a primitive species, but as a legitimate power. The galaxy, once confident in the Zorik's supremacy, now found itself in a state of uncertainty. Humanity, once considered insignificant, had proven that it was a force to be reckoned with. The unexpected victory had not only shaken the Zorik dominion but had also altered the balance of power in the galaxy. The humans had revealed their strength, and there was no going back. Empress Vorith, though enraged by the defeat, knew that the war had just begun. But for the first time, she had to acknowledge that her empire was not as invincible as she had believed. The game had changed, and humanity from the shadows had emerged into the light. The Zorik Dominion, though stunned by their earlier defeat, were far from broken. Their pride had been wounded and their authority questioned, but the will to dominate remained unshaken. Furious and humiliated, Empress Vorith declared a full-scale war on humanity. The galaxy, once accustomed to the Zorik's overwhelming might, now found itself thrust into chaos. New alliances were forged in desperation, while old ones were shattered by the realization that the balance of power had shifted. Humanity, once thought insignificant, had proven itself to be a formidable adversary, and the Zorik feared what this rising power could mean for their rule. The galaxy held its breath, unsure of where this new war would take them. Humanity's fleet, once hidden in the shadows, now patrolled the far reaches of space, their presence known and unmistakable. The Retribution and its sister ships, crafted with the latest human advancements, became symbols of resistance and strength. No longer content to remain in the shadows, humanity had emerged into the light of open conflict, facing the might of the Zorik Dominion head-on. But the war was not one-sided. Despite their earlier defeat, the Zorik were relentless. They began to rally other empires, tapping into their vast network of allies and subjugated worlds. The Zorik, confident in their sheer numbers, sought to crush humanity once and for all, hoping to quash any notion that Earth could challenge their authority. The war now raged on multiple fronts. General Caitlin Garrow and Commander Dorian Voss led humanity's forces with unmatched determination and skill. The Zorik had the advantage of numbers, but humanity had something far more dangerous: creativity and adaptability. The humans had learned quickly, making use of guerrilla tactics, advanced AI, and secret weapons developed in hidden laboratories. Every battle was a chess match, with humanity outmaneuvering the Zorik at every turn. Small but efficient strike forces would infiltrate Zorik territory, disabling key systems or launching surprise attacks on their supply lines. It was a war of attrition, one that wore down the Zorik's seemingly endless resources. One of humanity's greatest assets was its ability to adapt. General Garrow's leadership was nothing short of brilliant, her strategic genius guiding humanity through every challenge. Commander Voss, ever the tactician, crafted intricate plans that kept the Zorik guessing, forcing them to react rather than act. Humanity's fleet may have been smaller than the Zorik's, but it was faster, smarter, and more versatile. Each encounter was a calculated risk, each victory a testament to human ingenuity. From deep space ambushes to sudden, devastating raids. On Zorik strongholds, the humans showed their enemies that they were not to be underestimated. As the war continued, the galaxy began to take notice. The Zorik, once feared by all, were being pushed back. Their seemingly unstoppable fleets were now facing an unexpected resistance. The other empires, which had once dismissed humanity as a minor threat, now saw the potential in Earth's growing power. Several empires, seeing the tides of war shift, offered their support, sending fleets to aid the humans or providing critical resources. The tide was beginning to turn in humanity's favor, yet it was still a long and brutal road. The Zorik were not a species to back down easily, and their empire was built on a foundation of ruthless determination. Despite their losses, the Zorik were regrouping and launching fresh offensives, determined to reclaim their dominance and crush the human rebellion once and for all. The war was far from over, and both sides knew it. Humanity had proven itself to be a powerful force, but the Zorik's resolve was unwavering. The conflict had reached a boiling point, and the next battles would decide the future of the galaxy. Humanity's new empire, though growing in strength and influence, still had much to prove. The Zorik, wounded but unyielding, were out for revenge. And as the two sides prepared for the next phase of the war, the galaxy held its breath, knowing that the outcome of this struggle would determine not just the fate of humanity, but the very balance of power in the stars. The war between humanity and the Zorik Dominion had raged for years, a brutal struggle that had pushed both sides to their limits. The Zorik, though battered and bruised by humanity's unrelenting resistance, had never given up on their goal of domination. Empress Vorith, her pride and power now hanging by a thread, made one final desperate decision. An all-out offensive against Earth itself. She would destroy the heart of humanity, the symbol of their newfound strength, and put an end to the war once and for all. With her flagship, the Dread Sovereign, leading the charge, Vorith assembled a fleet larger than any humanity had ever faced. It was to be the final showdown, the moment when the fate of the galaxy would be sealed. Humanity, however, had been preparing for this day. General Garrow and Commander Voss had anticipated this final assault, knowing the Zorik would come for Earth when they were cornered. Their defenses were stronger than ever, and Earth's orbital network was a fortress of unimaginable power. But it wasn't just the defenses that had humanity ready. It was the strength of their alliances. Over the years, they had gathered supporters from across the galaxy, forging ties with other empires that had once feared the Zorik's power. Now, those alliances stood strong, and humanity's fleet, bolstered by these new allies, prepared to defend their home world. The final battle unfolded just outside Earth's orbit, where the tension between the two forces was palpable. The Zorik fleet, vast and imposing, hung like a storm cloud above the planet, while humanity's ships, sleek and efficient, stood ready to strike. The first shots were fired, and the battle erupted with all the fury of a star collapsing in on itself. Empress Vorith, determined to destroy humanity once and for all, ordered her fleet to press forward with unrelenting force. Her flagship, the Dread Sovereign, was a symbol of the Zorik's power, a colossal warship that eclipsed even the might of most galactic fleets. It was here, in the heart of the conflict, that the final confrontation would take place. But humanity, led by Garrow and Voss, had a different plan. The two leaders, whose strategic brilliance had already proven invaluable in the war, knew that this battle was more than just a clash of fleets. It was a test of their wills. The retribution humanity's flagship, faced off against the Dread. Sovereign in a fierce one-on-one confrontation, with Garrow and Vorith locked in a personal battle that would decide the fate of their people. It was a battle of tactics, of mind games and daring maneuvers, as Garrow and Voss used every trick at their disposal to outwit the Zorik. The space around them became a deadly dance, with each side making bold moves, only to see the other anticipate and counter. In the chaos of battle, humanity's ingenuity shone through. The Zorik, with their overwhelming numbers, tried to overwhelm Earth's defenses, but they underestimated the strength of the human spirit and the power of their allies. Garrow's fleet, though smaller, moved with deadly precision. With the Eye, Retribution acting as the spearhead, humanity's forces delivered blow after blow to the Zorik. The battle was intense, but every time it seemed the Zorik would gain the upper hand, humanity adapted, countered, and struck back with renewed force. The turning point came when Garrow and Voss, exploiting a gap in the Dread Sovereign's defenses, launched a daring assault. It was a risk, one that could cost them everything, but they had no choice. As Garrow's flagship closed in on Vorith's flagship, it became clear that this would be the end. In a final, decisive move, humanity's forces struck at the heart of the Dread Sovereign, delivering a crushing blow to the Zorik flagship. The Dread Sovereign's massive hull cracked and burned, its shields failing under the onslaught. The loss of their flagship was more than a military defeat for the Zorik. It was the symbolic end of their reign. With the fall of the Dread Sovereign, the Zorik dominion collapsed. Their fleet, leaderless and broken, scattered into the void. Empress Vorith, once a symbol of unyielding power, was captured, her empire shattered beyond repair. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as humanity, once a species hidden in the HFY shadows, emerged as the new dominant force in galactic politics. No longer would they be seen as insignificant. They had proven themselves to be capable of standing toe-to-toe with the most powerful empire in the galaxy and emerging victorious. The war was over. The Zorik had been defeated, and humanity's shadow empire, forged in secrecy and struggle, now stood in the light. But while the victory was sweet, it was not the end. The galaxy, still reeling from the shock of humanity's rise, now had to come to terms with the fact that the quietest of species had become the mightiest of empires. New challenges lay ahead, diplomatic struggles, emerging threats, and the unknown consequences of their newfound power. Humanity's legacy, built in the shadows, had just begun. The galaxy would never be the same again.